Good evening, students. We are going to continue with our Chapter 1, Roman Civilization. This week we wrapped up looking at Rome at its height. We looked at the various Roman accomplishments, their contributions, their legacies. We looked at their engineering feats, their contributions to literature, and we've looked at their various architectural styles, and we've also seen and appreciated their art. Today, we're going to focus on the various reasons that eventually led to the decline and the ultimate fall of this great civilization. In looking at their decline, we are going to be focusing on three aspects of Roman civilization on and during their decline. The first of these is political, which is having to do with government. Next, we're going to look at the social aspects, which is having to do with their people. And lastly, we're going to look at the economical aspects, which is having to do with their economy, or the buying, selling, and production of goods and services. First, we're going to look at the political aspects that contributed to the decline of Rome. First of all, as we see the last sovereign ruler die, Rome's government becomes extremely unstable. We see many army leaders fight over control of the throne. In a 50-year span, we see 22 different emperors, and many of those were assassinated. Some had mysterious deaths, and some just left because the chaos became too much for one ruler to handle. And some of this chaos stems from the Roman government and Roman government officials becoming extremely dishonest. We see Roman officials no longer looking out for the interests of the empire, but begin to serve self-interests. And with this, we see Roman officials taking bribes. Because Rome had such an unstable government, we really see a breakdown of their overall society, which leads us to the next aspect, which is social. During this time period, we see a large population of Romans becoming enslaved. We see the upper class, the wealthy, they had exorbitant amounts of money, and they liked to be comfortable, and being comfortable meant keeping slaves. And so we see over half of Rome's population enslaved. Now we know that unhappy, dissatisfied people can oftentimes lead to rebellions, and so we do see a breakdown of Roman society because we had such a large number of people enslaved. Now, as the Roman government breaks down, we also see a breakdown in the army, and we see invasions, and these invasions led to burnt fields, lost crops, and this loss leads to less food, which eventually leads to a famine. And we see that undernourished people lead to disease, so we see famine and disease spread throughout the empire. Lastly, because society was in such a state of disarray, fewer people attended schools, and this led to a lower quality of Roman citizenship because people were less educated and therefore less informed. Lastly, we have our various economical, which can seem as the largest factors that led to the decline of Rome. Because we see such an unstable government, we really see a breakdown in the economical factors that Rome was dealing with during the time period. Income and wages fall, and we see that the wealthy, because the government began to break down, they just completely stopped paying taxes. Well, taxes, as we've discussed earlier, taxes basically support the government and keep the infrastructure intact. Well, because the wealthy Romans stopped paying taxes, we see that the Roman government really could not continue to keep up their bills. At this time period, we looked at the Rome during its height. It was a large and vast empire, and it took an army and many officials to maintain. And as we see a breakdown in the government, we see a breakdown in the army, which makes it much more difficult to manage an empire of this size. So the Roman government knew that it could no longer afford to have a breakdown in the army. So because they did not have the money coming in, they had to create the money. So the Roman government decided to put less gold in the Roman denarii. And when they did this, they devalued their currency. And when they devalued it, it led to inflation, which was one of our vocabulary words, rapidly increasing prices. So where we have the Roman baker once was able to charge 1 denarii for a loaf of bread, he now can no longer afford to charge 1 denarii because that is now worth half its value that it was previously. So he now needs to charge 2 gold denarii in order to continue to make and bring in the same income that he had previously. And this is how we come to such rapidly increasing prices known as inflation. Well, inflation became so rampant throughout the empire that people could no longer afford to use the Roman currency in order to obtain the goods that they needed, and so people began to barter, which was another vocabulary word, and this means to trade. So they literally had to trade whatever they had in order to obtain the goods that they needed to sustain their lives. And this ultimately led to the breakdown of Rome's economy. Now, I know these 3 factors, political, social, and economical, might seem like the end of Rome. We're going to look later into the week as to the reforms that were made in order to stop or halt Rome's decline. I'd like you to pause the video and please copy down the tree map that you see in front of you. We're going to be using it for tomorrow's activity in class. If you have questions, please be sure to leave a comment or to email me on the website, and I will see you in class tomorrow. Thank you.